Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go.
All right. So, interesting question to start us off today. Someone asked Stuart Mandel of The Athletic this question in his most recent mailbag. So, here's the question that this guy asked Mandel. Assuming Julian Sayin from Ohio State and CJ Carr of Notre Dame are named starters for their respective teams, which supporting cast would you prefer for a first-time starting quarterback? Ohio State, with the best receiver duo in the country in Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, with a good tight end, Max Clare, but several new starters along the offensive line. Or the best running back in the country, Jeremiah Love, and nearly an entire returning offensive line, but questionable wide receivers. So that is the question that Mandel was asked. Sayin or Carr, which supporting cast would you prefer? How do you respond to this, Vince?
So I was trying to remove myself from being a Notre Dame fan and being an Ohio State hater. That's important to this because I didn't want to just pick the Notre Dame situation over the Ohio State situation. So I tried to look at it as a coach and just remove all names associated with this whole thing, right? So It's just a random starting quarterback. What supporting cast would you want to have, okay? As a coach, I want the proven offensive line and the run game. That's what I want because that is the best thing you can have for a new quarterback. And if you're starting quarterback, at Ohio State or Notre Dame, I would hope that you can throw the ball to some receivers. But I also know that you can hand off to Jeremiah Love or you could hand off to Jadarian Price, the best 1-2 punch in the country, by the way. And you're going to be in good shape behind that offensive line. And when you do drop back to pass, you're going to be protected and you're going to have time to throw to those questionable receivers or that questionable receiving core, as the question says. So I would rather have the offensive line in the run game as opposed to the elite wide receivers who maybe I don't have time to get them the football. That would not be good. Doesn't matter what you got on the outside if you don't have time to get them the football.
I agree. That's what I would start with. Marcus Freeman has always talked about we're an O-line, D-line driven team. And to have the kind of returners that Notre Dame has on that line and the kind of running backs that you have in the backfield, I think that can go a long way. And if you're the kind of, if you're a good enough quarterback, it's always the chicken and the egg. Does the quarterback make the receiver? Does the receiver, it's great to have elite wide receivers. Everybody wants them. Notre Dame obviously wants them. Notre Dame fans want them. But I do think that, you don't necessarily have to be an elite receiver if you've got a great quarterback who can lean on a run game and, have the protection of an offensive line. The quarterback can make those guys look pretty good with the throws. Now, to Mandel's credit, he did point out a couple of different things. One, Ohio State's offensive line is not quite as dire as maybe this question made it out to be. They do have their three returning. Basically, Ohio State's in the same situation Notre Dame was in last year. You return the interior guys, but they're missing the two tackles. So that's what they've got to replace. And they did bring in a pretty highly sought after tackle from Rice, who's going, from in the transfer portal. And he also pointed out that Jaden Greathouse finished the season with back-to-back 100-yard games last year and is on the upside. And then the fact that they added Malachi Fields as well. So he pointed out that, Notre Dame's wide receivers aren't necessarily, air quotes, questionable.
Agreed. So, it's not as black and white as that question makes it out to be.
They might lack the production and the flash that guys like Smith and Tate have at Ohio State. But
those guys are legit. They have proven that they are elite wide receivers, no doubt about it. And look, if you're a quarterback, you probably want to have those elite receivers because they're going to make you look real good, So I would be curious to hear what the quarterbacks would say they would prefer. I know what I would prefer as a coach, but I am curious to hear what a actual quarterback in a actual honest moment, you know what I mean? Because obviously Julian Sayin's going to choose Ohio State, and CJ Carr is going to choose Notre Dame, right? But I'm very curious to see what they would choose.
Tommy says at least Notre Dame's receivers didn't go 0 for in a playoff game. Very good point.
Can't argue that.
Nope.
Penn State.
So, Vince, if CJ Carr is Notre Dame's starter, is he more likely to pass for 3,000 yards or throw 30 touchdown passes?
You're trying to get me to predict numbers.
I know.
Which I am admittedly terrible at. But I believe in my bold predictions, I did say that whoever the starting quarterback would be would throw for 3,000 plus, which would put him in the top 10 all time in single season throwing history. Because I believe 9 and 10 are both like 2,900 or 2,800 or something like that. So that would be a top 8 performance all time. But I do feel like they will rack up some numbers here and be able to hit the yardage. So I'm going to go yardage on this one and say 3,000.
That's where I am as well, because I think you do still have those running backs to lean on. And you would expect that Love and Price are probably going to combine for somewhere between 25 and 30 touchdown runs of their own. When you look at where the touchdowns are coming from. And so,
sure.
So like you can still pass your way downfield and then end up, a running back like Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price or, whoever, Aeneas Williams ends up in the end zone. It just feels like 30 is a little bit too much in your first season, but I think 3,000 yards is very doable with the kind of passer that Carr is and for the kind of offense that this is going to be, and because of the fact that you should feel confident about these receivers as well.
Well, we talked about the fact that early on in the season, I mean, what self-respecting defensive coordinator is not going to put a game plan together to stop Notre Dame's run game? Like, they're going to be focused on Notre Dame's run game. And that's going to allow whoever the quarterback is to throw the ball around a little bit and force the defense to loosen up and, treat the wide receivers and the tight ends and all the pass catchers with respect, and whoever the quarterback is with respect. But they're going to have some opportunities. I think the first half of the season, Notre Dame quarterbacks are going to have some opportunities to put up some numbers. And now I also think the run game is going to put up numbers regardless of what defensive coordinators are going to do. But at the same time, the door is going to be open for the quarterback to make some plays. And there should be some fireworks.
Yeah. And, let's be honest, like the schedule is respectable, but there are enough games where,
for sure,
again, if it's Carr, where he should be able to feast, I think, against some of the secondaries he's going to face. So that's if Carr is the starter. If Kenny Minchey is the starter, where would you put his over-under numbers for passing yards and touchdown passes?
So I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to say that no matter who the thrower is, whoever's throwing the ball is going to get 3,000. So I'm sticking with that. That's the spot.
Okay.
Is 3,000. Okay. As far as passing touchdowns, that's a little bit harder. Do you have a number off the top of your head for touchdowns passed?
I'm right around 19 and a half, I think, is where I'd put it.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's like I think Drew Pine had 22, so maybe it could be even a little bit higher now that I think about it. But I think 19 and a half for a first-time starting quarterback like Minchey would probably be like, does he get to 20? I think that would be where I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good solid bet. I would say 20 is a good number. If he got into the 20s, I would be very happy. That 24 would rank 10th all-time single season, and that's what Sam Hartman did in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jack Cohn and Jimmy Clausen are tied at 8 with 25. So, and then it goes up incrementally, right? 24, sure. 25, 26, 27, and with Brady Quinn having the most ever at 37. So, anything over 20, I think, would be a success, especially like you said, with this running game.
I have I have Minchey's passing yards a little bit lower. I have him I would set the over under at 24.99. I think. Like, does he get to 2,500? Because as I said yesterday, like, he's still more a pocket passer than a runner, but at the same time, he will have some of his own, running yards over the course of the season to go along. So, like, I think that his passing numbers would be a little bit lower. Like if he's the guy over a full season, he's going to have more rushing yards than CJ Carr.
So I definitely agree.
I think that would eat some of that up.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, like Scott's asking, are we talking the whole season, including any playoff games? I mean,
I'm talking the whole season.
Statistics do apply to playoff games, but obviously we don't know how many playoff games.
Right.
You know,
so it's speculation on our part, obviously.
So it's more. We're more or less talking about minimum 13 games.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I would look at it. Your regular season plus whatever bowl game you end up in, or you know, at least one playoff game. Is kind of how I would look at it.
The whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. So, Vince, there is debate going on right now around college football about possibly going back to a BCS-like computer model to do the rankings rather than the committee, like they have had, you know, do the rankings in the college football playoff era, whether it's 4 teams or 12 teams like last year. Do you buy or sell going back to computer ratings?
It's a big sell for me. College football is, I guess it's similar to baseball, even though baseball is getting even more like involved with like the replay and the robo-umps and all these different things that they're talking about. But just the human error of college football, I'm not ready to get rid of that. And I didn't like the computer rankings back in the BCS. It was just very sterile, and I didn't like it. I like the debate. Like, there's no debate when there's computers. It's whatever the stupid computer spits out. Like, you can't even like debate anything with anybody. So
that's true.
I would say, here's what I would do, because look, this is the reality that it is 2025, and we have these things available to us. Okay, I would use it as a benchmark, a point of, we'll use this.
Maybe give it to the committee and say, here's what the computer says.
Yes, but
tweak
it's not
it at your,
correct.
Whatever.
It's not the be all end all. You know what I mean? It's a data point. I would use it as a data point, because I would look, if I'm on the committee, I want to use every possible piece of data that I can so that I can make the most informed decision. I think that could be a data point. I'm cool with that. I'm just not cool with that being the be all end all.
What if I told you that last year a simulated BCS formula would have given us a very similar set of rankings that the humans ended up with?
Really?
When it was all said and done. As I've found some simulated BCS rankings. What if I told you Notre Dame would have been number 3 in those rankings?
A little buy action. Is that what you're
on that
me?
Now? Are you buying?
No.
It would have gone Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State. That would be 1 through 5, and then Penn State, number 6. Interesting.
Penn State.
I think the thing is with the computers is, even though it's a computer and it's, supposed to not have any bias, like depending on the formula that you write for the computer, like you can still give it whatever bias you want to give the computer. Like if you say lean on strength of schedule, it can lean on strength of schedule. And I think that the reason this has become a big topic is because the SEC, like with the automatic bids and stuff like that, and the fact that they've gone back to this potentially a 4, what was it? Or a 5 plus 11, like instead of the 4 automatic bids, just the top 5 conference champions, and then 11 at-large bids. I think the reason they've gone back to this is like they really, for whatever reason, it's because they think that their teams got screwed last year.
Right.
By the selection committee, because of the fact that SMU and Indiana got in and Alabama got left out, even though they had more losses, obviously. But the SEC is trying to say, well, we played, a tougher schedule, so that should have mattered. Well, I don't like. Again, let me look at what the computer last year would have had Alabama at number 11. They would have had SMU at number 12. They also would have had South Carolina at number 14 and Ole Miss at 16. So, like if you're looking at a 16-team field, I think that's why the SEC is pushing for this, is because they think that the computer would favor their teams. And then in that case, you don't have to worry about the 4 auto bids. We're perfectly fine with the 5 conference champions getting in and then 11 at large. But again, you can still steer the computer in whatever direction that you want. And I like your idea better. You can show the committee, here's how these, whatever this computer, and here's what this computer has been told, like strength of schedule matters here, or whatever. Like, give the committee that data, and then the committee still has to make the decision. But
yeah,
the SEC doesn't trust the committee because of what happened last year. So
it's got to be the best of both worlds, right? I think I'm okay with using technology. I'm cool with it to get it right. I just don't want it to be the be all end all.
Well, and I saw somebody say something about AI, and I just saw something, supposedly, like the whole. I hesitate to ask you this. Have you seen any of the Terminator movies? Okay, so basically in Terminator, computers take over the world, Vince, in whatever year it happens to be. Okay. And so the Terminator goes back, and they're trying. I
knew there was time travel involved, and yeah.
So
robots.
So essentially, AI took over the world, and I mean, we're not too far off from AI taking over the world right now. So I don't know if I want another computer, running college football as well as everything else that they're going to be running here in probably 10 years or less, anyway.
Right? So. Yeah, I hear you. You're not surprised. Don't pretend like you're surprised.
Notre Dame women's basketball player Vanessa de Jesus has been named to the Philippine National Team. She's going to compete in a World Cup qualifier in China next month. She shared some of the details about what her next several weeks are going to look like at a press conference this morning.
So I leave June 28th, which is this Saturday, to go out and meet the team in the Philippines before we head out to Taiwan for a pre-tournament. It's called the Jones Cup. It will be from July 1st to July 7th. And then from there, we'll go back to the Philippines for a couple of days of training camp before heading to China for the FIBA Asia Cup, which starts on July 13. And then it will go until July 21, July 22, and then I'll come back after that.
So that, Vince, is blank.
Freaking awesome. That is such a cool opportunity. I don't know her history. I don't know if she's actually from the Philippines or if it's a familial, relationship kind of a deal. Because I know you can be a couple once removed or whatever, and still play for that country. I don't care. You get to represent your country, or you get to represent a country that is, part of your family.
She's actually from California, but obviously her heritage is Filipino. So.
I think that's awesome. If I had the opportunity to represent Italy or, the United States in something, I would jump at that opportunity. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And so what this is, Hannah Hidalgo is in the, she's on Team USA for the FIBA AmeriCup, and they're going to Chile, for their qualifier. And if they get through, then they would qualify for the World Cup. And so De Jesus will be doing the, she'll be with the Filipino team, and she'll be doing the Asia Cup essentially for a chance to qualify for the World Cup. And I think she said that her country had never qualified for the World Cup before and stuff like that. So it's a big deal for her. And it's, it's like you had Cass Prosper playing for the Canadian Olympic team last year. She's played for Team Canada before. You got Hannah Hidalgo playing for Team USA, and now you've got Vanessa de Jesus as well. And Lauren Ebo played in the Olympics for another, I can't remember which country she ended up representing, but she was not born there either. It was the same deal, in the whole thing. But it's pretty cool. All these players, that they've had doing this, and this is a player who obviously just came in from Duke, and is now going to be playing in some international competition. I went and looked at the travel time, by the way, to get to the Philippines. It's a cool 17-hour flight from South Bend to the Philippines, and that's with no layovers.
I was going to say,
it's going to take her a day and a half to get from South Bend to the Philippines.
There's no plane going straight from South Bend to the Philippines. I don't care what they call the South Bend International Airport.
No,
you're not going to the Philippines from South Bend. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's another couple hours from the Philippines to Taiwan after they do their training and all that kind of stuff. So she's going to be busy. That's going to be a lot of flying, a lot of travel, but probably a lot of fun as well to be able to do something like that. Very cool.
That's really cool. Really cool.
Brian Windhorse from ESPN posted a video on social media recently during the NBA Finals. He went into detail about where and how he watches a basketball game that he's covering. He actually travels to the game, but he doesn't sit in the arena, Vince. Instead, he sits in an ESPN workroom and watches the game on his computer and listens to the TV broadcast while he gets fed stats from the ESPN, like stats and notes and all that kind of stuff from the ESPN stats people. What do you think about covering a game that way?
What's the point? You do that from your house. Like, what's the point in going and staying in a hotel and being there? And like the whole point of going to a game, like, for example, when you and I went to the national championship game this past year, I realized that's not just a random NBA game. It's a big deal, but I want to feel what it's like to be there. And if I'm writing a story about it, that goes into the story. It's just like, it's the whole feeling of the arena or the field or wherever you're at covering it. You want to be immersed in it. Like, why would you hide in a closet someplace while there's a game going on? I don't understand that at all.
Why even go through the trouble of the travel and the hotel and the, like the whole thing if all you're going to do is go sit in a room someplace?
Do it at your house.
Deep in the bowels of the arena. Yeah, you're better off just sitting there, like you said, in your living room and, sit in your shorts or your boxers or whatever.
Right.
And do it that way. I would much rather do that than actually go through all that trouble and then sit there and not even see the game. Like the crowd, and it's like it's the NBA Finals, like the crowd and the emotion and the charge and all that. Like,
yes,
like that one, like when we were doing games during the pandemic season, like that sucked. I realized there was nobody in the arena, but we were sitting upstairs inside Purcell.
Yep.
And it was hard, it was hard to see up there, especially with a guy, with glasses and the whole thing. And you're just so removed from what's going on down there. Obviously, there wasn't crowd emotion or anything like that. But like the next year, when we got to be courtside again, it's like, count your blessings. Like, here we are. We're back. Yeah. Like, it's just so different, being down there, the ability to be courtside, like to see and hear everything. Can't hear everything, because of the headsets and stuff like that. But still, but it's to be that close to the action. Yeah, exactly.
It means so much more. I mean, even when
very bizarre.
Even if you're doing a high school game, you know what I mean, and covering a high school game, you want to be able to hear the crowd. Like we would hold a crowd mic like outside so that you could hear the crowd, and the crowd would get me excited when something was like, I don't know. And I realize he's just covering the game. He's not doing like play-by-play and stuff like that. So maybe it's different, but I don't care. I'm there to feel what it's like to be there so that when somebody who's not there reads what I'm writing or listens to a podcast and I'm recounting what it was like to be there, it transports them to that place that they are not. That's the whole point, in my opinion. That's why reporters exist. That's why we do what we do, because we're supposed to make everybody else feel like they're there.
And it's why you go to the games.
And he's not there.
Right.
It's like he's not there.
You're there, but you're not there.
Oh my gosh. I just don't get that at all. Like, I feel like he should throw on like the headphones that like the 2-year-olds wear, just like block out the sound. It's like, is it a sound issue? Is it like, does he can't handle being around people? Like, what's the problem? Why? I need a why to this whole thing.
I don't get it.
Got nothing.
Because, like you'll have your computer out and you'll have the TV broadcast of the game that we're watching, and you'll have like the earbuds in and listen to what they're saying, but you're actually sitting there in the press box watching it live on the field and then hearing what they have to say after
it's more for like replays and things like that.
Exactly. Because you got enough of a delay where you can watch it on the field and then watch it on the computer. So
correct.
Big difference.
Yeah. It's wild.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that ESPN's Field Yates tore a shoulder labrum while hitting a tackling dummy last year to determine his fantasy football draft order.
I can only imagine. I assume he's married. I can only imagine what like his wife said to him when he came home that day. Like, you're an idiot. Like, you're an idiot. Now, I would have done the exact same thing, and I probably would have hurt myself even more because I'm an idiot as well. But I mean, what a dumb move.
But this is also why anyone over 30, regardless of your level of athleticism, you should not. It's a fantasy football draft.
Correct.
You should not be doing any feats of any, physical, like agility, strength, any of this kind of stuff to determine anything to do with your fantasy football draft. Pick a number out of a hat and be done with it.
Right.
Let's stay away from it.
What does a tackling dummy, like, how does that even,
that's what I was trying to figure. Like, how do you, like, maybe how far you push the tackling dummy? I don't know exactly if it was a blocking, like tackling dummy is what I saw it was called. Maybe it was actually a blocking sled. Maybe
like who could,
maybe they were supposed to see, so you could push the sled the farthest or something. I don't know, but it does seem very foolhardy.
That's a major surgery now that has to occur.
I know,
because of that.
I know.
It's just wow.
Scott says his boys are 9 and 11. What are your best parenting tips? Oh boy, he's coming to us for parenting tips. It's a struggle, even though they are good and smart kids. The screen time video game thing is sort of a constant issue. Any tips are welcome.
Look, the screen time thing it's a daily battle, and I will tell you that my kids are obviously older than that at the moment, but they've had screens the majority of their lives. They just do, and now you can monitor what they're watching on there, and things of that nature. And I would highly suggest that you do that. I don't know that I buy like the whole you get 1 hour of TV today, and I that doesn't matter to me. But
I watched way too much TV when I was young. But the benefit
it would be the pot calling the kettle black for me.
Benefit is I've seen the Terminator and Terminator 2. Like
touche. Touche to you, sir.
And many other TV shows and movies.
Right. So. You have watched way more than me, so it would really be the pot calling the kettle black for you. That's for sure. Now, when Jesse was growing up, when did he get his first cell phone?
Yeah, see, I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been around middle school or even like freshman in high school. It was around that range. Like by the time he was in high school, iPhones were a thing, but I feel like he really missed out on, like he was probably 3 or 4 years ahead of like what screen time has become now, like with constant, like, we had iPads and stuff like that, but I don't remember him going crazy, and he played video games. I mean, I guess all I would say is, I think Scott's a little league coach is
nice.
Is just try to get him outside and just like, that was the thing with Jesse and I is, like we were like from the time he could swing a bat, we were out at the playground and I was throwing him buckets of balls and stuff like that. And we were throwing the football around and, pass routes and, all different, like, so it's like sometimes maybe dad has to, engage as well, but that's good for, for dad and kids is that you're out there, doing it together. I think. No,
100%. So, completely agree with that. I would say in our house,
without forcing them.
Right. Yeah, you don't. That's a fine line for sure. Right. Like in our house, school is by far number one, and I know it was like that in your house too because Jesse had really, really good grades. So that's number one in our house. Once you get your schoolwork taken care of, okay, now let's talk about privileges and all of those different things. My kids don't have cell phones, and they don't. So that's part of it, and we're weird. And it makes things complicated, but that's kind of where we're at. So, and I make my kids buy their own stuff because it gets more skin in the game. So they actually have cell phones, but they just don't have a number. So they can use them on Wi-Fi and stuff like that, but they bought their own. So they don't lose them and they're not rough with them and things like that because, hey, you break it, you get to buy yourself a new one.
No, that's a good point because like my dad is one of those like always buys the cheap sunglasses, but then he either loses them or sits on them. And I'm like, well, I buy the good sunglasses because then it forces me to take better care of them and be cognizant of where they are. And I don't lose them and I don't break them because
no, 100%. And that's how my kids are with their stuff. Like they're very careful with it because they know if it breaks, it's not and I want to throw it out there because everybody knows I'm cheap. It's not because we're cheap. It's because we are trying to instill, responsibility, number one, and number two, and fiscal responsibility too. Right. You know what I mean?
Value of the dollar. Right.
Correct. And so we have the kids, they buy their own clothes that they want. You know what I mean? We'll buy them clothes and stuff, but like if they want something extra, they got to buy it. And same thing with the cell phones. So I found that to be very, very, very helpful.
Are they thrifters? Like, do they go to the thrift store? Anything like
sometimes? And it's funny, out of my 5 kids, like some kids are spenders. Like like money is burning a hole in their pocket. And then I've got other kids who they save it all. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting kind of how that all works. But it's interesting. And look, man, every kid's different too. That's the other thing. You can't parent one kid the same way as the other kid. That's the other piece of this.
That's true.
Because I got 5 and they're all different, even the twins. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that's the end of my parenting advice, man. It's day to day. That's where it is.
Chief Brody says, let him watch Braveheart. That's a good call.
I mean, I have no problem with that.
Braveheart. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what movie needs to be next on your list. You've seen The Town now.
I have. It was good.
Personally, I think you'd like, you know what you need to watch? You said you hadn't watched either The Town, Argo, or Gone Girl. And those are, I think, Ben Affleck's 3 best movies. Argo you would like. It is based on a true story. It's about ARGO. It's about a CIA agent who goes into Iran, during like the crisis that was going on over there. And he gets these Americans out of the U.S. embassy, out of Tehran, and gets them home. And there's a little humor mixed in there. John Goodman's in it as well.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I would go with that. Historically, like based on a true story, all that kind of stuff. So
gotcha.
I think you'd like it.
Scott's coming at us hard here for some more information.
Say more, Vince. How do they earn money? What age do they start? Do you hold their money up to a certain age?
Man. Very simply, I almost want to give him my email address so he can just email me and we can just have this chat back and forth. Holidays, Christmas, holidays, birthdays, things like that, they get money. And so they have to save it. My mother-in-law gives them money for their grades. I'm a big non-fan of that, but
yeah, we didn't do that.
I don't like that at all, but I was overruled. So that's their total sources of income. My oldest used to just grab a rake and go rake people's leaves and shovel people's driveways and that kind of stuff to make money. And obviously he's old enough. He has a couple jobs and things like that too. So that's how the money comes in. Do I hold it? No, they have to hold it. They all have wallets. They all have little secret hiding places for their money. And there's like a certain percentage. We make them put it into the bank for college. And then they have the rest for spending. So yeah. Yep. So we don't hold it, though. They have to hold it. If they lose it, that's on you. And if I find it, it's going in my pocket.
There you go. All right. Parenting advice from Vince. Maybe we need to start ending the shows with Vince's parenting tips.
Oh my God. That's setting the bar really high. I feel like we did good with the first one. Who knows what's going to happen with the next 4? That's where I'm at.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Again, don't forget, tomorrow we've got Notre Dame women's basketball coach Neil Ivey on the show, and we'll talk about a lot. We'll talk about a lot of these new players and Hannah Hidalgo and some of the others returning like KK Bransford and Kassan Prosper and kind of see where they are and how things are looking with all these questions everybody has about this new look Notre Dame women's basketball team for the upcoming season. Thanks for the questions there, Scott, and for everybody else in the mailbag as well. We will wrap it up with that. Hit that like button before you leave. Do appreciate you, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.